There's a lot more chatter going on recently of the potential of World War III. We'll look at a few videos. This first one from Redacted, and then an update of what happened in Poland recently with Russian drones. Of course, we know the Bible says there will be wars and rumors of wars, so I think it's important to stay up to date on what is going on in this arena, especially when we're seeing more news about it. So again, this first video is from Redacted on an update of NATO collapsing.
Have they lost their freaking minds? Yes. We're going to get to that part in a second because I want to go over some facts, because when I connect the dots of all the moving pieces, the map layout right now shows an incredible tsunami of economic and geopolitical changes on the horizon that you must be aware of and, frankly, capitalize upon. But first, let's start with Trump's ultimatum here, because this is where the story really explodes. Here's what he actually said. It's a pretty damning statement that I just want to read word for word. Okay, these are the president's words. I'll put them up here on the screen. I'm ready to do major sanctions on Russia when all NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing, and when all NATO nations stop buying oil from Russia, in all caps. As you know, NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%, and the purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. Anyway, I'm ready to go when you are, just say when. I believe that this, plus NATO as a group, placing 50% to 100% tariffs on China to be fully withdrawn after the war with Russia and Ukraine is ended, will also be of great help in ending this deadly but ridiculous war. China has a strong control, even grip over Russia, and these powerful tariffs will break that grip. This is not Trump's war. It never would have started if I was president. It's Biden and Zelensky's war. I'm only here to help stop it and save thousands of Russian and Ukrainian lives. And then he points out 7,118 lives lost last week alone. Crazy, he says. If NATO does as I say, the war will end quickly and all of those lives will be saved. If not, you're just wasting my time and the time, energy, and money of the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. Holy cow.
This is something we're seeing more of, which could be a good thing in the long run, a dismantleship of NATO. Of course, it's good to have allies, and that's something all of our nations should have. But what's crazy is when we see NATO, the UN, all of these different organizations with leaders who are not elected to run and make worldwide global changes, and then they're going and doing this without anyone's opinion, without any elections. That type of thing should not be allowed, especially with the UN, because none of those guys, a lot of them don't even have positions of power in other governments, or just whoever the UN thinks they want who can push forth their agenda. Same with the WEF, of course. So let's get a little bit more info on this, and we'll see what Russia just did just about a week ago, sending drones into Poland, kind of initiating the potential for NATO to get involved in the Ukrainian war. Obviously, this type of thing would trigger a World War III situation.
I'm ready to do major sanctions on Russia when all NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing, and when all NATO nations stop buying oil from Russia. He blasted NATO members still cutting checks to Moscow, calling it shocking because it is. I mean, how can NATO claim to be united against Russia when they're still bankrolling Russia's economy? They rely on it because it's been all one big giant bag of lies pushed by Biden and Zelensky. Germany, incredibly reliant on Russia's natural gas. The United States blows up their pipeline under President Biden. Their economy collapses. And Trump just showed his cards. Trump went further than he's gone before. He demanded NATO impose tariffs of 50 to 100% on China, punishing Beijing for buying Russian oil and gas.
Which, by the way, when Trump came out and did those tariffs at first, which is why we do see good things coming out from this administration. We don't get the list, the Epstein list. There's some things that are falling behind on, but then people were saying these tariffs were a bad idea. They've actually turned out to be a pretty good idea, bringing a lot of more money into our economy, changing the debt and things like this. So this could definitely change things, and it does pressure these other nations to do things that America wants them to do, and not for us to just do everything for all the other nations in the world, pretty much.
You know, like facts get in the way there, right? I mean, so Trump's message was clear: unity or irrelevance for NATO. Either NATO acts together or it admits the whole project is a fraud. And until they do, Trump is saying America is done carrying them. I'm ready to go, he said, when all NATO nations are ready to go. Translation: no more freebies for you, NATO. No more freebies for you, Europe, if you're going to continue to do this behind our backs.
Which is how it should be. We shouldn't just be fighting everyone's war for them, helping all the other world economies, doing everything, sending Zelensky billions and billions of dollars when, you know, where's that going? He's doing nothing to actually try to end the war. We saw the article just pop up on Redacted's video about the drones that Russia sent into Poland, saying it was a mistake. Trump said it could have been a mistake. but that would definitely initiate a World War III situation, getting NATO involved in this war with Ukraine and Russia. So here's a little bit on that event that just happened. This video's from 3 days ago, but the Poland Russian drone event happened about a week ago or so.
The barrage of Russian drones that entered Poland from Belarus was a chilling reminder of how easily the war in Ukraine could set Europe ablaze. Poland said it scrambled its own as well as NATO aircraft to take down some of the 19 Russian drones that entered its airspace. It marked the first such instance since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Europe is a continent already on edge. The war in Ukraine has been dragging on, Russia is militarizing, and there is uncertainty about what President Trump's commitment could be. Polish, Ukrainian, and many Western officials believe that the Russian drone barrage was intentional. Russia has denied the claim, and its ally Belarus said the drones had veered off course.
That's the claim.
But President Donald Trump, who hosted Russian President Putin at a high-stakes summit in Alaska, suggested that multiple Russian drones breaching Polish airspace could have been a mistake.
What's your reaction to Russian drone incursion into Poland?
Could have been a mistake. Could have been a mistake. But regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation. But hopefully it's going to come to an end.
So what's pretty much going on is that these drones went into Poland, landed, attacked Poland. Russia said they went off course. They were meant for Ukraine, but they attacked a NATO nation not involved in this war. So the allies of Poland should be involved, pretty much initiating a war with NATO. And then we have Russia, who's butting up with China. Their buddies up with North Korea, India getting involved with them with the new BRICS currency. So we are really seeing what the Bible warned against: wars, rumors of wars, nations and kingdoms rising and falling. This is exactly what we're seeing more than ever, especially in this time.
Poland's Prime Minister rejected Trump's remarks. Donald Tusk also called on Poland's allies to not pretend that nothing happened.
It says, we don't think Russia is behind the quote was, we don't think Russia is behind this provocation. We know it. However, I also understand that for those who would like some kind of normalization, stabilization, some kind of policy understanding with Russia, this situation is very uncomfortable because this happened in the Polish skies on the night of September 10th is happening. It's hard to pretend that nothing happened. I hope that none of our allies will pretend that nothing happened, because it did. It did happen.
NATO has said it was investigating whether the Russian drones were deliberately sent into Poland. But Mark Rutte, the Secretary General, said Russia's intentions were besides the point.
Whether it was intentionally or not, it is absolutely reckless. It is absolutely dangerous. But as I said, the full assessment is ongoing. And to Putin, I mean, my message is clear. Stop the war in Ukraine. Stop the escalating war, which he is now basically mounting on innocent civilians and civilian infrastructure. Stop violating Allied airspace. And know that we stand ready. That we are vigilant and that we will defend every inch of NATO territory.
The drone barrage came days after 26 nations pledged to provide post-war security guarantees to Ukraine, including an international force on land and sea and in the air. So it could be Russia's warning to European countries considering sending troops to Ukraine as some sort of a security assurance in a peace deal, something that Moscow has consistently opposed. Russia is aware that the Trump administration is conducting a review of American troops abroad, and the expectation is that thousands will be pulled out of Europe. That is why countries that are geographically close to Russia have dramatically increased their military spending. One such country is Poland. It is particularly engaged in a huge and expensive build-up of its own defenses. After Russia's incursion, Poland turned to its NATO partners for consultations under Article 4 of the NATO agreement, designed for a member that feels under military threat. Prime Minister Donald Tusk told his parliament, "This situation brings us the closest we have been to an open conflict since World War II."
Not good.
Poland, which has long been mistrustful of Russia, is spending some 4.7% of its economic output on defense. This is among the highest in NATO. Nearly 10,000 American troops are currently based in Poland. When the country's president, Karol Nawrocki, met Trump at the White House recently, the American president said that not only would his troops remain in Poland, but we'll put some more if they want. In the wake of Russia's drone incursion into Poland, NATO allies have taken steps to bolster defenses on Europe's eastern flank, touted the prospect of further economic sanctions, and convened an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Analysts, however, have suggested that only a robust political and military response will be enough to deter Putin. Is it time for NATO to rethink its defensive posture and the kind of assets that it deploys on Europe's eastern flank?
We'll see. And that's what's happening. World powers, all the major ones, all getting involved. And then the ones who aren't involved, China, North Korea, India, they're also being involved by proxy, supplying these countries with supplies, with weapons. Same with us, giving Ukraine. I mean, we're practically in a proxy war, supporting Ukraine, giving them weapons, billions of dollars in weapons. Where's all that going in the first place? A lot of it not accounted for. So we're definitely seeing things move in the direction that the Bible warned us about. World War III warning as Putin could strike London or Paris if NATO doesn't respond. Even the US could be impacted, an official has suggested, as the world stares into the abyss of a global conflict. We're definitely seeing us move in this direction. It says that Paris or London or Berlin could be next after a Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace. Some of the devices traveled hundreds of miles into NATO territory, but were not loaded with explosives. Polish foreign minister, this guy suggested that the means that Russia tried to test Europe with starting a war. Now, Ukraine's UN envoy has suggested that Putin's next target could be a major Western European city or even the United States. This type of thing, we'll see how it's moving this direction. Trump put the subs in Russian waters. Putin responded with massive military tests. We'll look at that in a minute. But here's more. This was from a week ago. World War III fears as millions warned to take shelter after Putin's act of war.
World War III fears have spiked as millions are warned to take shelter after Putin's act of war over Poland. Poland has shot down Russian suicide drones after Putin's forces repeatedly violated its airspace during an overnight attack on Ukraine. The NATO nation used its air defense system to blast the drones out of the sky amid what it described as an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens. The region is home to approximately 8.7 million people, and they were told to take shelter early this morning. Poland is set to trigger NATO Article 4 after the Russian attacks. Article 4 is invoked when a member of the alliance has identified a threat to its territory, triggering formal meetings between allies on how to respond.
It's definitely moving there. This happened a month ago. Trump moves U.S. nuclear submarines into a rare warning to Russia, moving them closer to strike Russia. This has just happened, and then Putin just responded recently to this. So
issuing new warnings to Russia and repositioning 2 U.S. nuclear submarines after what he calls highly provocative statements by Russia's former president. Meantime, President Trump has given Vladimir Putin just one more week to negotiate peace with Ukraine or face tough new sanctions. Here's ABC's chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, in a rare and extraordinary warning to Russia, President Trump ordering 2 U.S. nuclear submarines to the region.
A threat was made, and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people.
That threat Trump was talking about, a post on social media from the former Russian president about unleashing Russia's nuclear arsenal. Trump saying he repositioned the submarines just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that, adding words can often lead to unintended consequences. The war of words only escalating since Trump took office. And so has the war in Ukraine, the war President Trump had said he would end in the first 24 hours of his presidency. More than 6 months later, it has only gotten worse, and President Trump's patience is growing thin, now threatening new sanctions on Russia in the coming days.
Russia, I think it's disgusting what they're doing. I think it's disgusting.
The president did not say what kind of nuclear submarines he deployed to the region, but the U.S. already has nuclear ballistic missile subs circling the globe. We were aboard the USS Maine in 2022 when the commander of submarine forces told us Russian subs are always being watched.
We know when there's Russians underway at all times. We track that very, very closely.
This may all be saber-rattling, but it is a very large saber. Nuclear-armed submarines are the most deadly, destructive warships on the planet.
It's being moved. Again, kingdom versus kingdom, nation versus nation, wars, rumors of wars. Can't deny that that's happening. Putin sends Trump a warning after his nuke sub threat. Be very, very careful. And he also did a massive war games, sending different military, different planes, different practicing near, I think this was even near Poland, also kind of initiating this whole thing. And this article here a day ago says, don't panic, but politicians are warning World War III is closer than ever for this scary reason. Here, one of the leader of in London saying, the right thing that is the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. The wrong thing would be to ignore this aggression from Putin in Russia. This wasn't a one-off. Only a few weeks ago, we saw attacks on the British Council in Kyiv, the EU embassy, and hits on the Council of Ministries in Kyiv itself. Here, Putin defies Trump's peace plan and deploys nuclear bombers in World War III games. This is from 2 days ago. Vladimir Putin boldly defied Trump's peace plan and deployed a nuclear bombers as part of his war games. 72 hours Putin launched his Tu-22M3 strategic bombers as part of a joint military exercise with Belarus, in which the soldiers must fight off a mock attack and demonstrate crushing their enemies. He sent MiG-31 fighters. Also, all of this all around this region, all around the borders of these regions, moving everything into place. Troops were also said to run a drill using nuclear weapons in Belarus, which borders NATO members Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, as preparations to fire the super weapon Orshnik from the region are underway. We see here, this is from September 13th. Sirens are sounding in Swindik, Poland, as mobile alert issued for threat of Russian drones entering its airspace. This video is pausing here. It's just the sirens in this area. Things moving this direction. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk wrote on X, due to the threat posed by Russian drones operating over Ukraine near the border with Poland, preventive operations of aviation, Polish and allied, have begun in our airspace. Ground-based air defense systems have reached the highest state of readiness. Also this, September 15th, 2 days ago, longtime GOP lawmaker warns Trump of World War III. Never seen anything like this. While announcing his retirement from Congress on Sunday, McCall condemned Russia's intrusion into Poland's airspace last week and claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin is manipulating Trump. This is from the 19 U.S. drones that supposedly went in there by accident. Trump says it could have been a mistake. And McCall says we've never seen anything like this in recent times. And so what I'm concerned about is the escalation here and the temperature rising. We've got to be very careful not to be on the precipice of a World War III. So a lot of things moving in this direction. As of right now, it doesn't look like we're quite at the tipping point, but things are definitely moving this way. No surprise, because the Bible warned us. Everything about what's coming in the future is told to us first in the Bible. Jesus warned us beforehand, which is why we can trust him and his word over anything else. So spend some time in his word. He guides us. He protects us. He will lead us. Be in prayer that these things aren't going to happen and that we can hopefully have a time of just spreading the gospel and these escalations will die down in Jesus' name.